Pro wrestling fans, this is Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. I have a very special guest, Game Changer Wrestling. Recently had a match that got a lot of attention, and that was Matt Cardona versus Nick Gage for the GCW. They call it the World Heavyweight title. And, like a lot of people, I would imagine I wasn't, going to subscribe to GCW on Fight TV. I just wanted to see the match. So I go to YouTube and I put title match, Cardona Cage, and I get to the interesting, very fun, a lot of pro wrestling stuff. Tantalizing Tony. I never heard of this gentleman, but he did a video tantalizing right there in the tat. I love it. And Tantalizing Tony, I saw your capture of this crazy, unbelievable match from your phone and your phone camera. And I basically felt like, like we kind of were kindred spirits, because I'm doing a lot of the same thing at AEW. And because I go to Daly's place to watch AEW stuff and I capture a lot of stuff. And I was like, oh man, Tantalizing Tony is very similar to myself. So I just felt like I want to talk to this guy because you're doing with GCW kind of what I'm doing with AEW. And I wanted to introduce myself, get to know you, your history as a wrestling fan, what you're looking to accomplish with your YouTube channel. And for people that, like myself, had no clue what GCW was all about, Tantalizing Tony is a great resource. So, Tony, welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate you reaching out. It's always great to talk to wrestling fans, and that's what we are. Before we're YouTubers, we're fans first, and that's the way I always look at it. That way I never lose my, focus on what I'm there for. I'm there for fun. I'm there because I love wrestling. I've loved this since I was a kid. I'm 53 years old. I'm a retired. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm a retired professional wrestler. Well, technically semi-retirement because I didn't have my last match yet.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that somewhere down the road. But I'm from Brooklyn, wrestling in Long Island with the HWA, the Hardcore Wrestling Alliance. Also have a connection to NYWC. That's New York Wrestling Connection out in Long Island. Shane O'Neill, shout out to him. I just loved wrestling since I was a kid. I loved Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson. I saw them win the tag titles versus Samoans. They got me hooked. And then the match that really made me fall in love with wrestling is WrestleMania 3. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and my man, the Macho Man Randy Savage. Oh yeah! So I just love wrestling. It's been my life, and I figured, hey, if I'm going to talk about wrestling, I might as well talk to other people. So I started my channel, and here we are.
Tony, were you at that show live, Allentown, Pennsylvania, in 1983 when Johnson and Atlas beat the Samoans? Were you there live, or you mean you watched it on TV?
I wasn't there, but I saw it on television. I think I was about maybe 12 at the time, so I saw it on television. But I am from New York, so I used to go to the Garden all the time. Like I've been, I was at Monday Night Raw, the first Raws at the Manhattan Center, where you have to run up 10 flights of stairs to get your seat. It was first come, first serve. We would sleep outside 5 a.m., 4 a.m. to get great seats. Wow. When Mr. Perfect and Shawn Michaels fought in the street, if you look at the video, you can see me trying to block the glass. I'm in a lot of front row seats at the Manhattan Center. It was a lot of great times there. So, I've been in a lot of matches. If anything on the East Coast, I try to go to. I've been to quite a few WrestleManias, quite a few SummerSlams. So being from New York and being at the Mecca, the Garden, which is the Mecca of all arenas, I got to see a lot of stuff. I was there when Hogan won the title from the Iron Sheik.
Wow. January 24th, 1984, I believe.
That's right. I love, your dates. I love that. Yes, you got the right date. Yep.
Wow, so much stuff we could go down many rabbit holes with the nostalgia. Let's go back to GCW and then we'll go back to the nostalgia stuff because we probably share a lot of common memories. But this GCW, you are originally from Brooklyn. And well, first off, who did you train with in wrestling? Like you just said it was the school that you just mentioned, but give me some more info on that.
So if you ever heard of Mikey Whipwreck from ECW?
Yeah, he was great. He was the ECW World Champion, Tag Team Champion, TV Champion. He pinned Steve Austin in ECW. Yeah.
So I trained with Mikey Whipwreck. We came up at the same time. Of course, you see he went pretty far. I made different choices in life, family, whatever. He's a great friend, but I trained with him, Paul Lauria, Mike Norman, Craig Boscia, Kevin Flynn, among others, Robert Franklin, a lot of guys that have on the independent scene on the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area, as well as New Jersey Pro and NJ. Oh my God, don't give me the line. New Jersey Pro Wrestling. So I've been East Coast. I've done a lot, but I've trained with a lot of people. Believe it or not, Matt Cardona, speaking of GCW, was a big NYWC student. So yeah, so we have a connection right there for GCW.
Now, at some point in your life, you relocated. You're a bit of a family man now, and from what I could tell, your kids, at least some of your kids, love wrestling. Is that correct, or do they just tolerate it because Dad loves it?
Well, most of my kids do love wrestling. Some more than others. My producer Kira, who's 17, you see her in all the videos. She comes to me everywhere. She basically does all my stats and keeps my notes and checks my emails and makes sure my camera's set up, make sure my belt's set up right. She does everything. Without her, I would be lost. So I mean, she doesn't like to get on camera too much, but she's 17 years old. She's a senior in high school this year, and she's without her, if she goes away to college, I'm in big trouble.
What's her name again?
Kira.
And she's like your producer, so shout out to Kira.
She is my producer. She's my producer.
She is your producer, yeah.
Yeah. Not to mention my son Dimitri. He also helps with he checks the news for me and the clips. So it's a family thing, it keeps us close.
Now, you guys, because I could see that your family was having a wild time, and I was watching this GCW match, Cardona versus Gage. We'll start with that because that kind of the hot topic of the day, and I thought you did, first of all, I think you did a great job, really, not just a nice job, but a great job capturing the energy of the situation. I really felt like probably the biggest compliment you can pay to someone when they do a phone camera thing, because there's always limitations with the phone camera, but I do stuff with phone camera, whether I'm going to Disney World or whether I'm going to a wrestling match, or I saw Fozzy in concert last week. So there's limitations with the phone camera. But that being said, you can get a really cool capture. And the best compliment is people who watch this on YouTube feel like they're you. They feel like they're in your shoes experiencing this madness. Was there anything? So I would reference people to your channel and to some of your GCW clips, but I really feel like, man, I feel like I'm right at this show, this crazy show. What was that whole experience? I guess what I'm also curious about is the undercard leading up to the main event, because I'm like, if this was the main event, I'm curious, was the undercard like traditional arm drags, hip tosses, or was it all thumbtacks and barbed wire that night?
Let's first talk about the crowd. That crowd was off the chain. Yeah. I think the combination of, the pandemic and, not having a live show in so long, and just the entire aura of the night. I think the way Matt Cardona and Nick Gage set up everything, it was such an electric feel that people were on the edge of their seat all night long just waiting. That being said, the undercard was just as good as the main event. Every match was action-packed. And there was some good wrestling matches, arm drags, drop downs, takeovers, but it was hardcore all night long. Even when it was just wrestling, it still had the hardcore feel. Any way you can do a pile driver and not get banned, it's hardcore. I mean, these guys were going over the top rope, going through tables, barbed wire, bottles, light bulb. It was crazy. Not just Matt Cardona, Nick Gage, everyone. Everybody on that card it seemed like they were all in sync, like the planets were aligned. It was a great night. My daughter, who goes and she tolerates the matches, and she likes WWE, of course, but she was like, "Oh my God!" A piece of glass hit her in the hand. She goes, "Daddy, I hit with glass." Like, "Oh my God!" Goes, "It's the best thing ever! It's the best!" So she was so happy, and for her to be drawn in, that showed me what kind of night it was for just the regular fan. So we went to a show this weekend. It was a nice show, Jobber Slam, out in Brooklyn. She goes, "This is good," but she was like, "When are we going back to GCW? When are we going back to GCW?" So I got to give them a lot of credit. Also, the access they give the fans, they let you get close to the ring. They let you bang on the mat when there's things that happen, and they're real respectful. Like, they don't grab you and throw you back, but you know when to move back. So I got to give the GCW officials and the producers. I was around all night giving out my cards, giving out, doing interviews, and it was so giving. So, I mean, it's just an atmosphere where you felt comfortable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the wrestlers knew that too. They knew we were comfortable. They knew we were in love with them that night, and they showed it back by putting on a great show.
How many shows previous, maybe you don't know the exact number, but approximate how many shows of GCW have you attended live in person before this, Tony?
So prior to this one, WrestleMania weekend in Tampa, I was at a GCW show, which was a great show. My good friend Jared, JB Boyd, shout out to him, who also we do a show called Over the Top Rope on Facebook Live. He turned me on to GCW, and I had never been to a GCW show. It was outside. Of course, it was Tampa, Florida, so it was nice and warm. And these guys, it was awesome. I mean, Big Cash showed up. JTG was there. Tuco Scorpio. Rich Swann. I got to dance with Rich Swann, which was awesome. It was a great night. I mean, I never really heard of them before. I mean, I heard of them. I never researched them because I would say 6 months ago I was more of a WWE guy watching AEW. I didn't watch a lot of independent stuff because there's so much.
Right.
But if you want to know about wrestling, you got to realize that there's more stuff than just WWE, more than AEW. There's so many organizations in different, especially territories now. Again, if you think about it. So I love Game Changer Wrestling, and I'm so glad I got to go. I'm so glad I got to experience with my daughter. But next show they have, I'll be there. There's going to be a show in Vegas the night before SummerSlam.
Wow.
Since I'm going to SummerSlam, I will be there.
You're a hardcore fan, man. I love it. I mean, what you said about the indies is true. I remember, over 10 years ago, Tony, in Fall River, Massachusetts, I was associated with Top Rope Promotions. I would do commentary for them. That was the group that Scott Hall kind of had his nervous breakdown at.
I remember that.
Yeah, that was a rough night. And but they actually, Top Rope hosted Dragon Gate Pro USA, and I went up to the promoter afterwards, and I said, "This is one of the best 10 shows I've ever seen," and that's a whole lot of shows. And I mean, recently just bought a DVD of that show. I found some guy online that had a DVD of it from this show I saw 12 years ago. Well, Moxley was there. Akabono, the sumo guy, was on that show. Brody Lee was on that show. So it's amazing. My buddy Adam Demoy is checking in. Adam, if you don't mind, I'll put your comment on the screen.
What's up, Adam?
Thanks, Adam, for checking in. Disco Inferno is wrestling at that Las Vegas GCW show.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Representing the brand, representing the Vince Russo's the brand. Tony, let's talk some more wrestling. Now, you are from Brooklyn, and you now live in Delaware.
Yes.
And so you have a bit of a commute. How long is your travels from go to Delaware to that last GCW show? That was in New Jersey, right?
That was in Atlantic City, so it's only an hour and 20 minutes for me, which is not that bad.
Yeah.
You know, if I can do anything under 4.5, 5 hours, I'll try to do it. It's tough because, you know, once you get to the show and the show finishes, it's a long night, it's a long drive back. But I figure that it's got to be worth it, just because even if I meet one person that, you know, likes wrestling or watches my channel or gives me some insight. Like, here's a perfect example. I met a lot of guys at GCW. A lot of people took my card. You know, I have my card and my QR code, so it's very easy to get my YouTube channel. You show the code, boom, goes right up. I give about 1,000 cards out. Now I maybe got about 100 people that subscribed that night, which is fine. But my thing is this: if I meet one person that I connect with, it's a win for me, because that's something I didn't know. The perfect example is I met you. You know, now we know each other. Now, you know, we can spitball things back and forth. I can pick you up, Brady, and vice versa. Of
course.
Wrestling, people don't outside people that don't like wrestling think it's such a, you know, it's this, is that. But it's such a community, and it's such a tight-knit community. Now, of course, we have our differences, and of course, we have our opinions. But to me, wrestling, my wrestling friends, I've had them 30 years. I've had friends 30 years because of wrestling that I still talk to this day. That I moved to Delaware because of a friend from wrestling. Wow. So, I mean, to me, wrestling, it's my life. It's, of course, I love my family. My family comes first, of course. But, you know, after them, It's tantalizing Tony in wrestling. That's what it's about for me.
I got to ask you, did you ever, was it called the ECWA Super 8? Did you ever go to those?
ECWA Super 8?
Yeah, I thought it was called the East Coast Wrestling Alliance Super 8. They had this like cruiserweight tournament. I thought it was in Delaware in the early 2000s.
It might be. I've heard of that. I've never been to one of those. You know, I'm not gonna lie to you. I try to tell my people that watch me. I don't say fans, and I call them my friends, my peeps. I don't try to lie to anybody. There's some things I just didn't go watch just because I feel like, you know, I'm not into it. But I did hear about them. I know they did some good work.
Yeah, they had like Billy Kidman and different guys over the years. I think Tommaso Ciampa won one. There was like an 8-man tournament that they had annually. I don't know if they still do it or not, but I always wanted to go to that. That was one of those things that I wanted to do, but I never got around to it. If they bring it back or if it's still going, maybe I'll meet you up there, because ECW Super 8 was something that was a Delaware thing for quite some time. Let's talk a little old school. Let's talk a little nostalgia.
Okay.
Because you mentioned some pretty cool stuff. I got to ask, did you ever meet that Victor guy, that wrestling fan, Victor?
So I know Victor very well. Excuse me, his name is Vladimir.
Vladimir, thank you.
Vladimir. So I know Vladimir. I know I got named Victor too. That's why I said that. But I know Vladimir very well. Vladimir always got front row tickets to the Garden. Him and Charlie have been to every WrestleMania, as has somebody else we know, but we won't mention their name right now. See, the thing about going to every WrestleMania is you want to be able to prove you have your tickets. And in the beginning, the first couple of WrestleManias, I went with other people, course of time. So I don't say I've been to every WrestleMania, but between me and you and everybody else, I've been to every WrestleMania. But Vladimir, great fan, great guy. Same thing with Charlie, who they did a little story on. Always animated, always was in the mix. You know, he got to go in the ring with Piper, you know, and choose Piper's tag team partner being Hulk Hogan. So yeah, he's a New York guy. He still lives in New York to this day.
I just watched that clip, to be honest with you. I saw that clip on YouTube that Piper is I think he's going back and forth with Bobby Heenan, if I'm not mistaken. And and Heenan says, "Why don't you choose a partner?" And Piper says, "I'll let the people choose a partner." And then he brings in Vladimir, and he says, "Hulk Hogan." Oh my God.
He goes, Hulk Hogan. Yeah.
Oh my, it's great. It's a good thing that he didn't say Ric Flair or Dusty Rhodes or something. if he went off script, right? So, well, I love the thing. Hey, I'll give you the credit for going to every WrestleMania. I'll take your word on it. New York, well, I'm assuming, but I could be wrong. Was it Nassau Coliseum you went to for WrestleMania 2?
That's number 2, yeah. That was number 2. That's when Piper and Mr. T had boxed and they, broke down to a Pier 6 brawl, So
the interesting thing with, if I'm not mistaken, I think Jake Roberts and George Wells were there, right? Wasn't that
correct? As well as Steamboat versus God, don't give me a line. I know it was Savage versus Steel and Wright. Steamboat versus Hercules Hernandez, right?
God, I've got this whole thing memorized. New York was Morocco Orndorff, which was a double count out, which should have been a hell of a lot better match because those two guys were great, and they just didn't.
Those guys were money. Orndorff was money, man.
Yeah, we recently lost Paul Orndorff.
Rest in peace, Paul.
Yeah, I did a tribute to Paul Orndorff on my channel, and Morocco is on my Mount Rushmore of wrestlers. It's Morocco, just personal favorites. Not saying who's the greatest, but just personal favorites. I've got Morocco, Wyndham, Barry Windham, Brian Pillman, the original, and Ric Flair is my 4.
Wow, that's a good 4.
Thanks. And I'll ask you your 4 in a moment. I'll let you think about it for a second. So
got them already.
Oh, well, give me your 4. Give me your 4.
My 4 all time, and this to me is my Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. And
I do things based on, it's not just wrestling abilities, popularity, and drawing money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as much as I hope this doesn't turn people off, but I don't lie. I'm not a fan of Hulk Hogan. I never have been. But he's on the Mount Rushmore because how can you not put Hulk Hogan on him? He made wrestling mainstream what it is today. So it's Hogan, Austin, The Rock, and to me, I'm sorry everybody, but my guy, Eddie Guerrero.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with Eddie. Eddie's great.
I love Eddie. People don't realize how good Eddie really, really was because he was so underutilized. as a mid card in WCW, but the guy could do anything. Oh my God.
You must have been very vocal about a week ago. Somebody said something about Eddie Guerrero not being an A performer, and then it became a whole debate. Were you seeing that on Twitter about a week ago?
I of course put my comments in. You got to realize something about fans. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, and you can say things a certain way, but that's like calling Kurt Angle a B+. I mean, come on.
Right.
Eddie Guerrero is one of the greats of all time. He has some personal issues. Who doesn't have personal issues? You know, we know Bray Wyatt just got released because of mental health issues. You don't know what people are going through. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But to say something derogatory towards Eddie Guerrero, come on, man, you're gonna catch hell for that.
I don't know if Bray was released from mental health issues, or they find that they've got Alexa Bliss, and I think she's doing great with the Fiend or whatever you call it. But I find that WWE is so erratic now with who they're hiring and firing. It doesn't make much sense. But let's go back to WrestleMania 2, because you had Morocco Orndorff. I believe you had Jake the Snake George Wells.
Yeah.
You had Savage defending the IC title against George Animal Steel, which was kind of a fun match. It was a goofy match, but it was kind of fun.
Anything Steel did was funny. It was a good gimmick match. You know, the guy was so intelligent in real life. Like, the guy was a legitimate college graduate who was really smart.
And then you had the aforementioned Piper T main event.
Right.
I think WrestleMania 2 gets underappreciated. It's actually one of my favorite WrestleManias because I like the ambition of it. The ambition of having 3 different venues on a Monday night. And some people wonder, why was WrestleMania 2 on a Monday night? Well, I know the answer. Because on Broadway and the theater world in Los Angeles, Monday nights are traditionally dark nights, meaning they don't do shows on Monday nights.
Right.
And so when you had all these Hollywood people, and some of them were doing Broadway plays or whatever, you know, Vince or whoever made the decision was smart, because let's get those people on their vacation night, Monday. What was it like watching? Because at WrestleMania 2, you watched like 4 matches live, but then you're watching the screen.
Yeah, it was called, for all the young people out there, it was called closed circuit television. And basically, you know, after the matches are over, you're watching the main event. We're watching Bundy versus Hogan and watching other matches. I mean, it was great. The feel was exactly the same because you're already in the arena. You know what I mean? You're already hyped. Not to mention, some people came out. There was some official that came out, like I believe Joey Morello was still alive then. Somebody came out and was talking to fans. They made it interactive, but it was a different kind of night, like you said. It was very you know, back then you gotta realize something. It wasn't like it is now with all the pomp and circumstance. It was basically just a major show that they put a little bit more into. WrestleMania now it's like the Super Bowl. It's bigger than the Super Bowl. But it was great just to be there. You know, anything you're a part of with fans that you can cheer and yell and scream and curse and whatever, it's a win, you know?
Yeah, and that must have been so awesome. And then from there, I guess you went all the way to Pontiac, Michigan for WrestleMania 3. Oh my God. What was that like?
That was tough because I was going into the Army the next week.
Wow.
And I didn't have a lot of money to get there. So I took a bus, and then I don't do this, kids. My daughter's to the right of me. Don't do this. I hitchhiked the rest of the way. And had to walk maybe 14, 15 miles.
Wow.
to the Silver Dome, and the Silver Dome was a broken down piece of crap back. It was terrible. It was like the ceiling was falling apart, but I didn't care. I sat all the way up in the rafters, and I did not care. The place was packed, and when my boy Steamboat came out, and people don't realize Steamboat's music used to be the theme music for the Chicago Bulls. People don't realize that. And that music hit, and man, oh man, that place went crazy. And that match, the false finishes, you know, the false counts, everything was just, I fell in love. It was the great. I think it's in my top 3 WrestleManias of all time. It's just a great
it
night.
was such a tight match because Savage apparently made those 2 guys rehearse it in the hotel rooms or whatever for the months leading up to it, because Savage wanted to be a perfect match.
He had 100, from what Steamboat said in the documentary, he had a legal pad and 100 lines of notes that he goes, okay, after this, what's this? Duck the clothesline, duck the elbow, okay, leapfrog over the top rope. And then he went over and over and over. And Steamboat said, listen, whatever makes Savage happy, that's what I'll do. You know, and listen, some people call their matches, it depends on who you go against. Like, you know, some matches I call them on the fly, and some we talk about before in the dressing room. But whatever made that match, it was still to this day. 1987, was it 34 years ago?
Yeah.
30, right? I mean, come on. Still one of the greatest matches of all time.
They should have a club for guys like yourself and women that have gone to all the WrestleManias and just to exchange stories, and they should do like a photo op. You know what I mean?
Right. I would love it. You know, but it's hard, like I said, it's hard to prove you went to WrestleManias. We don't have the tickets and everything. You know, I made my last 20. I have my last 20, and I have a few back, but now I don't have my ticket from 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and they both were in Atlantic City. So I mean, you know.
Yeah, but there's things that you would have as insights, like memories that other people wouldn't. Like, for instance, the interactive stuff, and you know what I mean. Here's a question about a WrestleMania thing that I interviewed a buddy of mine, Carl Cotti, on this channel because he went to WrestleMania 22. That's another one of my favorite WrestleManias that I think does get a fair amount of love from folks because it was a really good WrestleMania.
Right.
And you had, I believe it was Foley and Edge in the hardcore match with Lita. But you know, to me, that was a really good like a great WrestleMania, to be honest with you. I watched it twice on TV, twice back to back that night. But that main event of Triple H and John Cena, I got to give him credit. You know, Triple H, whatever he's doing now behind the scenes is a different story. But as a competitor and as a guy who made you feel legit about being a wrestling fan, WrestleMania 22, Triple H, the Conan entrance, I think that was a great entrance. I really mark out for that. And I thought Cena, that I think was when they debuted the new style Cena song. Like I'm pretty sure his song, like the remix, debuted at WrestleMania 22.
I think you might be right because I know he's using that word "life" all before that. He might have used it the week before just to introduce it. I think maybe at a house show or something. I can't remember all the schematics, but it was definitely new then.
Yeah, like the beginning of it. The fuck, you know.
Right.
Tell me about your experience at WrestleMania 2, because I got to ask, just because of all the manias, that's one of my favorite. What did you think of that one, Tony?
I thought it was good. I don't think Triple H gets the credit he deserves.
Right.
Triple H is a great worker.
Yes.
He's one of the best in the business. A lot of people think that Triple H is very bland because he does the same things. Like Cena got 5 moves, but Triple H makes stars. You know, the guy is always in great shape. And to me, Triple H is one of the best of all time. Him and Cena are money together. They have great chemistry. They have a love-hate thing that you really can feed off of. And I think that their chemistry is just great together. And the thing about Triple H, so people don't realize that he put you over. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Triple
H has lost more WrestleManias than he's won. You go back and check the numbers, you know?
Oh, sure. Yeah, Ultimate Warrior. He put over Benoit at Mania. Yeah, he put over Batista. He put over Cena. He put over a lot of guys at Mania. And the only guys that he really beat, I mean, just going off the top of my head, are like he beat Brock and he beat Jericho at Manias. But Undertaker, he put over 3 times.
Right.
So, there was a one WrestleMania, you know, speaking of Undertaker versus Triple H, there was a one Mania that I don't think the people at home enjoyed as much as the people that were there live. And that, I'm not sure the exact number. It was 26, 27, something like that. It was the one that The Rock hosted and he interfered in the Miz.
That's Atlanta. That's in Atlanta. That's 27.
Yeah. What'd you think of that one? Because I feel like it didn't. I think that the live audience loved it because The Rock was there in person, but I think that got lost in translation on TV, in my opinion.
So the opening match, Edge with Alberto Del Rio, was awesome. Right back then, that was Edge's last match. That match to start to show off, perfect way to start to show off with the World Heavyweight Championship, was awesome. I think, let me see, I'm not trying to get things mixed up. I'm trying to see, was that the one where Snooki was at?
Yeah, I think it was, and I think that it was highlighted by Miz and Cena with The Rock coming out as the enforcer.
So Snooki got a bad reception. I remember that. That turned a lot of people off. And I think the problem with the main event with Miz and The Rock and everything, The Rock interfering so Miz gets the win, I think it threw people off. Of course, they were setting up 28, which was great, of course. I just don't. I can't understand what people meant, what people felt, because in the arena, even though we were popping for stuff, after the show, I went there with like 7 friends. We talked about it afterwards, like, that was kind of weird. It was a weird WrestleMania.
Yeah.
It was weird how it ended that way. The Miz going over is not a big deal, just the way he went over. So The Rock interfering just because he's, it felt like he was sour grapes.
Right.
So.
It wasn't my favorite, and I could be wrong. I'm not sure. I don't think that was the first PG WrestleMania. It might have been the second PG WrestleMania, but it was like the PG era. So they couldn't really do a lot of harder stuff. And I love The Rock. I just saw Jungle Cruise last weekend, which I thought was actually fun. It was good. It was I did a 40-minute reaction video to Jungle Cruise, but I thought it was a good show, a good movie. But I didn't feel like I needed to see The Rock speak as much as he did at that Mania. But Tony, did you ever get into? Now you said you're mostly a WWE, WWF guy. Did you, going back to the old school a little bit? Did you ever go to any of those East Coast, like Pro Wrestling USA or NWA shows? Like every once in a while, the NWA would come to the Meadowlands, like back in the 80s and the 90s. They tried a few times. And Philadelphia was always a war zone between WWF and either WCW or NWA. Like Philly, they'd be doing the Spectrum on one side of town and the Civic Center on the other. Did you ever venture into that NWA fanhood or not really?
I watched on TV like the NWA. I did see Dusty versus Ric Flair in Philly. Maybe
86, like an 86 bash.
85, 86, maybe. I can't remember the exact year, but Dusty's underrated too. People don't realize how good Dusty Rhodes was to be such a big guy. But him and Flair, you want to talk about chemistry? Yeah. Those guys had chemistry. Those guys battled across the country. But what I used to go to when I was stationed in Oklahoma, not that far from Texas. We used to go to WCCW. Nice. I've been to the Sportatorium as well. I saw Steve Austin at the Sportatorium before he became Stunning Steve Austin.
Right.
Sort of Von Erichs in person. Before Ultimate Warrior was the Ultimate Warrior, he was a Dingo Warrior.
Yep.
Yeah, so I saw him a few times too in Texas. But I wish I had to go to more NWA shows. It just was such hard access to get to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, Dingo Warrior, Gary Hart, and then he turned babyface, and so were you able to see like David live, or was it after that? Because David passed away, I think, in January of '84.
I don't think I saw David live. I know I had seen the show after he passed away, and I wasn't at the show where Flair went against Kerry, right. But I was at like a smaller show when I think David had just passed away. But that was tough. Let me tell you, the Von Erichs are big in Texas to the point where they're royalty. Yeah. God bless the Von Erichs. They had such a tough upbringing. Tough.
Yeah, the whole family fortune is just crazy. So, man, you've had some awesome experiences. Adam once again checks in with, I went to WrestleMania 24, HBK versus Flair retirement match. I want to say that was in Florida. Wasn't that in Orlando, or wasn't that in Florida somewhere?
It was Florida. It was oh my God, where was it? Oh God, I get all the nurseries mixed up.
It was either Orlando or Tampa, but I want to say Orlando.
Let me tell you something. These WrestleManias run into the same to me because my daughter asked me something. Goes, Dad, what WrestleMania was 34? I was like, oh yeah, well that was when Daniel. Wait a minute, that's 30. So I get them confused. It was Orlando, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Adam does say it's Orlando. The weird thing, Tony, as you saw, I could sit here and I could tell you the 4 different matches in the 3 cities of WrestleMania 2. But if you try to tell me what was WrestleMania 35 versus 36, I could get them all mixed up. You know what I mean?
It's tough when you go to a lot of them. And then now that I go to a lot of independent shows and then house shows and SmackDown, they all King of the Ring. I miss King of the Ring. you know, being to the first SummerSlam, and you know, it's a lot. It's a lot.
The first SummerSlam was interesting to me. I'll be honest. I think the Bulldogs and the Rougeaus were really
Good
that was a crisp, awesome match.
match.
I feel, just as my own point of view, although looking back at that stuff now can be very fun and nostalgic, I remember at the time thinking that the matches were all like 5 to 7 minutes.
They were short.
Yeah, they were very short. And a lot of guys, like a Dino Bravo versus Morocco match, two great wrestlers, but if you only give them 5 or 7 minutes, what can they do? Right. And it's almost like Vince McMahon, as we know, Jr., or we think we know, he's really into muscle guys. So a lot of these guys it was more about having that big look with the big shoulders than what you can do in the ring. But yeah, I mean, that must have been fun to see Miss Elizabeth and Macho Man and Andre and Ted DiBiase. And
the Mega Powers versus the Mega Bucks, to me, is a lot of people don't give that match credit. They told a great story. You know, DiBiase and Macho in the ring together are money. Those guys could work together. I like the dynamic because you got two wrestlers that could actually mat wrestle, and you got two big bohemians who, you know, just go on gimmick alone. You know, don't get me wrong, Hogan. People don't realize Hogan could wrestle. Hogan wrestled some good matches in Japan. Hogan could actually wrestle. I've seen Hogan have some good technical matches, but just for the 88 was a time where you could tell WrestleMania 3 changed everything. You know, that changed everything. That the slam her around the world changed everything. And Vince did a good thing by, you know, leapfrogging off of that, piggybacking that. And that match was so good, just the way they told the story. And Jesse the Body as the special guest referee, it just had a great feel to it. And when Elizabeth takes off her skirt and those guys do the handshake, it's like when the Twin Powers activate, the place goes crazy. So I thought it was good. I mean, you know, to me, of course, Warrior versus Honky Tonk Man was, you know, craziness. That was 88, right?
That was SummerSlam 88, and it was a surprise because Ron Bass had sliced up Beefcake's head with the spurs.
Right.
So Honky Tonk had no opponent. He should have kept his mouth shut.
Bring me anybody. Bring me in. I'll take anybody.
I'll wrestle anybody. I'm the greatest intercontinental champion of all time. A Honky Tonk Man.
You know, that match, Gorilla Monsoon, you know, watching it back, he goes, that music, I know that music. It was Monsoon was so good on the mic, man.
Yeah. Yeah, the Monsoon was awesome. JJ McGuire, a Facebook friend of mine, a guy I've spoken to, he was one of those musicians, one of those producers of music of that era. Of course, Jim Johnston. I'm not sure which guy did which, because I know Jerry and Jimmy Hart worked together, and then Jim Johnston did a lot of stuff. But the last 3 or 4 years, the WWE had those kind of experimental or techno guys doing their music, and I don't know if a lot of that stuff, some of it's okay, some of it's good even, but not all of it. You know what I mean?
Jim Johnson's missed. He's missed.
Yeah. Let me, you know, an unsung era for my fanhood in wrestling, with WWE especially. I kind of enjoyed the year, basically 2006, and I'll tell you why. The first year of ECW, as we call it now, I thought was pretty good. The first year. Now, if you're talking year 2, 3, and 4, or whenever it ended, it turned to crap. But I don't know. Ric Flair and the Big Show doing a thumbtacks match, and Kelly and Tommy Dreamer. Nice to see some of the guys like Dreamer and Sandman get work. And Sabu, nice to see a Sabu come into WWE. What did you think of ECW, as we call it? You
know, I call it ECW Light. Okay. Because I used to work for ECW. When Whitbrook was there, I was one of the ring guys. I used to help we used to quick story. So Sonny Blaze, who we know from Long Island, he got us in ECW. We used to get the U-Haul in Long Island, load up the ring, drive it all the way to Philly, put the ring up in the bingo hall for the matches, take it down, drive it all the way back, and have to drive back the next day. It was crazy. But it's crazy being in the locker room with all those guys, with Taz and Dreamer and Sandman and New Jack, who just passed away.
Right.
It was crazy. I watched how Paulie does, how he breaks down everything. Paulie, when he does his promos, Paulie gets a whole bunch of alcohol and he rubs it on his face, so his face turns red and his eyes burn. And because his eyes are burning, he looks like he's like just on fire. So that's how he cuts his promos. He does that. I don't know if he still does it to this day, but he would cut promos in the back. And the guy's a genius. People say a lot of bad things about Paulie. I'll never say anything bad of him because he gave me work. 911 was his guy. He used to put us through, used to choke slam us every match. If you go to YouTube and look up choke slam 911, you'll see a very young Tantalizing Tony with a black ECW hat and a black shirt getting his butt slammed through the table. And my good friend Craig Bosher, the Flawless One. Shout out to Flawless One. But ECW Light. Sorry to go on a tangent.
That's all right.
I thought it was good. Like you said, some people got worked. Vince buying ECW probably was the worst thing for ECW because he's like he swallows things whole.
Right.
He's like the eater of worlds. Shout out to Bray Wyatt. I liked it. I didn't like Kurt Angle as champion. That's when I think he got watered down. Then against Kurt, like you said, the first year, yeah, but after that, thumbs down for ECW Light is what I call it.
Yeah, I understand. Now going back to the original ECW, you mentioned New Jack. I was actually friendly with John Eliminator Cronus, and I have on here on my channel, I have Wrestling Son: Memories of My Parents' Divorce, which was the actual Eliminator John Cronus in a movie that I directed. It was a very spontaneous movie, but it's John playing the character of a father and a wife that's played by his real life girlfriend, Cassie Strader. And it was Crimson Mask Wrestling show. And it was just a nutty event. But John to me was a salt of the earth guy. Tommy Dreamer, I've spent some time with. Sandman, Raven, I've spent some time with. These guys were salt of the earth guys. And that's why I think there was something about ECW where, they talk about the Stone Cold, like people saw, hey, this is a guy yelling at his boss. But that feeling of, man, I'm one step away from this wrestler, to me, that really came with ECW first, because it's like, no offense to Stone Cold Steve Austin, but he's a more polished version of the Sandman in some ways. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And it's
same gimmick.
Yeah, same gimmick, and it's variations on a theme, as Andy Kaufman would say. But I always just felt that guys like Mikey Whipwreck, I mean, literally his gimmick was, this was a fan. This was a fan, and then on the Ring Crew, and then suddenly he's wrestling and he's coming out to Loser by Beck. And the other thing, Tony, is this is the problem with, no offense to the WWE, because I know what they do on the network or the Peacock channel. They play the ECW video library, but they have to take out all that music. At the time in 95, 96, 97, 98, Paulie, he said that he was paying the copyright fees for the music, but I'm sure he wasn't. But he's got Beck for Loser for Mikey Whipwreck, Metallica, Enter Sandman for the Sandman, I Am the Man in the Box, Tommy Dreamer, Alice in Chains. Half the guys were using AC/DC music, and as a DC fan, I've got Highway to Hell, Spike Dudley's coming out, Back in Black, Chris Candido. I mean, God, it was just and it's hard, Tony, for me sometimes to try and talk to younger wrestling fans, because I don't want to be condescending, but I'm like, you guys don't quite get it. If you're just watching the ECW stuff on the network, you're not living it. You know what I mean? You're not even seeing the real video. You got to go to the bootleg group. You got to find some bootlegger on Craigslist or something, or some nefarious means of getting your old VHS transfers or something, because that was the real deal. It was a special time. The downside, Tony, as I'm sure you know as well, a lot of these guys died young, and that's always a tough thing when we see our Rick Rudes and our Kurt Hennings when they pass away young. And ECW had a high rate, like of the Louis Spicoli's and the people. I mean, it's tough when you see your favorite wrestlers pass away, isn't it?
It's tough, man. And being in that locker room with those guys, and I can't say I was there all the time, but I was there quite a bit, and just to see the camaraderie with those guys, they weren't getting paid a lot of money. Some of them weren't getting paid at all. Paulie, not to put a pun on his name, but he was robbing Peter to pay Paul. It was tough for those guys. And I mean, they didn't, some of those guys maybe made $100 a match, and was still out there doing their thing. Like you mentioned, Tommy Dreamer. I don't know if you would listen to Busted Open Radio on Sirius. So I call in all the time on that channel. I'm Tony the Bus Driver. I don't know if you ever heard me before, but I used to call in all the time. And at all the events, when I talked to Dave LaGreca, all those guys, Tommy Dreamer is one of the nicest, down-to-earth guys you ever want to meet. He talks to all the fans. He lets you ask him questions. He's approachable. And that's how ECW was. They loved their fans because the fans were passionate about them, man. It's like, and it was interacting, too. They got to interact, throwing chairs in the ring. And, these guys are jumping off the balcony. Like you would literally, if you didn't get out the way, Sabu would land on you in the front row. You would have to get up or he did not care. He would land in your lap. I remember a match where Hugh Morris was going against Hawk. And Hugh Morris shot Hawk into the barricade and hit this kid. This kid was in the front with the barricade, the kid in the leg, and the kid was in tears crying. And during the match, you could see Hawk call this move. He said, I'm going to take you out right now. Stay down. He told Hugh Morris, stay down. And he went to go talk to that kid and make sure that kid was okay during a live, it was televised, live match, to make sure this kid was okay, And after the show, he came back out. They gave that kid tickets to okay that kid. So it's like just that alone, they care about the fans because to stand outside in the cold in that bingo hall,
right? It
was cold in there during the winter. It was cold. No heat in that place. That place was a dump. And that was 2,300. It's nice now. You should see it now.
Right.
I went to MLW show about 3 weeks, a month ago. That place is nice. They got concession and everything. But back then, those guys, they paid their dues, man.
Yeah. Let's get this comment up from Adam. The entrance music definitely made a difference at that time. Sandman coming out to Metallica with woman Nancy by his side. She was a talent thanks, Adam. Nancy, whether it's Nancy Sullivan or Nancy Benoit, however we want to refer to her, but what a talented lady. She managed Doom. She worked with Kevin Sullivan in her early days in Florida. It's a shame what happened to that whole family, but what really, on top of everything else, that her career doesn't get mentioned as really being like a Hall of Fame jet-setting career for women's managers, Tony.
Yeah, definitely. I worked with her in ECW. We would stay at the same hotels, and she would talk to you. And her and Kevin was, she was with Kevin at the time, and very nice woman, no pun intended. Very down to earth. Could talk to you about anything. It wasn't just wrestling. She was just nice. She just, and she was great for the business. Very, very underrated. Right? She should be in the Hall of Fame, but I don't think they want to, have any kind of connection with Benoit, so it'd be kind of hard. But I mean, she was great. Yeah, as was who I loved, Sensational Sherry. Who was great in ECW. I mean, you have no idea how giving a woman she was. Just sweet. Never forget. One of the ring ropes broke. Mike Awesome broke the top rope during a match. It snapped, and we had to put it back together. And we panicked. We didn't know what to do. We're like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? And I had to go back to get some tools in the locker room. And Sherry's like, just calm down. She knew my name. Tony, calm down. Kissed me right in the forehead. It's okay, honey, calm down. And I was panicking. I was like, they're going to fire us. But she was just that kind of lady. Nice lady, man. Just very nice. And rest in peace. Like so many great talents gone. Sherry, Woman, Candido, Spicoli.
Doug Furnace.
Yeah.
And Axel and Balls. I went to that Extreme Rising show in 2012 in Philly and made a pilgrimage to go to that. And I'm really glad I did because the show itself suffered from microphone trouble, which was really bad. It's too bad because the show was pretty good besides the audio trouble. But I learned, as I'm sure Shane Douglas and everybody else did, that if you don't have a good ring announcer's microphone, you don't have a wrestling show.
Right.
And but it was so nice that I got to see Axel Rotten's last pro wrestling match. against his buddy Balls Mahoney. New Jack and the Gangsters were there. Al Snow was there. And that was 2012. And now even more of these gentlemen have passed on, which is unfortunate. Tony, what exactly was your position with ECW? Just to clarify there, because we mentioned it, but we didn't say exactly what were you.
I was part of the Ring Crew, basically. You know,
Yeah.
I would once again I'll give my shout out to my guys, Paul Laurier, Craig Bosher, aka the Flawless One, the Giant Paul Laurier. He had a couple matches there. Storm and Mike Norman, and of course Whipwreck. We were all Ring Crew.
Yeah.
And but we did more than that. You know, like we would get in the ring and take bumps and help out the guys, and you know, like I'll give you a perfect Bubba Ray Dudley, Bully Ray.
Yes.
We used to train with him in Long Island at this closed state penitentiary, this asylum that they shut down. We had a ring in that place, and I would take senton bomb after senton bomb after senton bomb from Bubba Ray.
Wow.
I mean, and the crazy thing is this, is that they have more experience with ECW than I do, because I did my own thing out in Pittsburgh. I wrestled for United States Championship Wrestling in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I was a light heavyweight champion back when I was light heavyweight.
Sure.
back in '97. But my memories of ECW, even though it was tough and we were hungry, and it was great, man. It was great.
It was a great time. I mean, I remember seeing the guys come out at some point, and they all had like these brand new ECW jackets. It might have been right before or right after Barely Legal, but like all the wrestlers had these shiny jackets of ECW.
They invaded Raw. They invaded Raw at the Manhattan Center with those jackets on.
Yeah, and they just looked crisp, and it was like that's when it meant something. And I see a bit of that in the AEW these days. It's not the same energy. It was definitely a more masculine, edgier, hardcore energy with ECW in the 90s than AEW today, but it's a reflection of the generation. And I'm happy to be a part of it as a fan and doing my videos of AEW and my opinions. And I guess for me, WWE, sometimes I really take issue with some of their policies and some of their decisions. So I'm pretty encouraging to other types of wrestling, and even GCW, where I have some issues with the hardcore stuff. And it's really just out of concern for the guys. Like it's not that I'm offended by it. It's just that when I see Matt Cardona with like a gash going down his back, I'm like, this is risking possibly hepatitis, possibly some type of infection, a staph infection. I'd hate to see a Cardona who's got this beautiful Chelsea green in his life.
Yeah.
And you got to wonder sometimes about the mentality of these guys to put themselves through it, and it's definitely, as a viewer, it's exciting as hell. But
I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead, because I just think about that. Go ahead.
You make a great point, but since you said Matt Cardona, let's dissect this. I think Matt Cardona had something to prove.
Yeah.
The guy is a talent. He has God-given talent. Whether it was Zack Ryder, doing his Long Island thing with the YouTube, Long Island champ, whatever it was, he is a talent. And I think he got a bad rap that, he couldn't work, that he wasn't, versatile.
Right.
And I think that with this heel persona and him showing up with that hood on and, basically trolling the GCW universe, I think that he has reinvented himself. And if you didn't believe in Matt Cardona before, you got to believe in him now, because he did his job, literally did his job, to the point where that place rioted. I mean, if you watch, you can't watch my video now, but if you saw my video, there was basically, you could have got hit with a bottle in the head. They were throwing everything. And I love that he stood there and took it, and he egged the fans on. He was like, yeah, keep throwing crap. And he showed his title. And then he headed for the hills opposite of the exit. He went out the front way where the fans come in. And I thought it was great. There was blood everywhere. He tracked blood all over the walls. And yeah, you're right. They're risking their health. And it, of course, it's got to be scary. But I think that he really wanted to prove to fans And not to give a dig to WWE, but show them, hey, listen, I'm not just this guy, Zack Ryder, woo, 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 that you put in the box. I'm Matt effing Cardona, and I can work. And I think the guy did his thing.
I think you're right, and I appreciate that. I guess, and it's really not one or the other in this case. It's like both. He proved his point. He showed that he was underused. Another guy that WWE, he got himself over on the internet, and they cut his legs out from under him. As Arn Anderson says, they took his water away from him. To me, it seems like Junior, as I call him, is so scared of wrestlers getting themselves over. He doesn't allow that to happen anymore, and it kind of makes me upset. But Tony, I want to wrap it up here with allowing you to give all your social media plugs, your YouTube channel plugs. I want you to have an open floor to do that for a couple of minutes. Go ahead, buddy.
First of all, let me thank you for having me on. I know people don't realize this, and I'm talking to whoever's watching. I'm looking right into the camera. You know, wrestling is a lot to all of us, you know, and just for Mike to reach out to me, send me an email, say, hey, man, come on my show. It means you have no idea what it means to me. If I get one subscriber from this, I'm happy. If I get none, I'm still happy. Just to talk about wrestling, it makes me feel, you know, like me. Quick backstory. Sorry to keep you so long, but I just want to say this.
Go ahead.
I just had gastric sleeve surgery 2 months ago. I was 389 pounds. I suffered from depression. I was having this stuff was going wrong in my life. I got the surgery to get some help to lose the weight. I'm now at 259 in under 11 weeks. Okay.
Awesome.
You know, I was 340 day of surgery. So right now I'm at 259. And it reignited my passion for wrestling again because wrestling saved me. Other than my family, I love them. I love my kids. I love Trevina. I love everybody. They've saved my life. But wrestling has made me really want to do this. So that's why I started my YouTube channel. It's been up forever, but I didn't get serious until this past year. And I'm on every platform I can be on. First of all, I'm on YouTube as Tantalizing Tony. My name's right down there. There's my QR code. If you want to take a screenshot of that right now, anybody who's watching, you can do it right there and go right to that. I'm on Facebook at Tantalizing Tony. I'm on Instagram at Tantalizing Tony 11, LEVEN, and I'm on Twitter as Macho Man Tony because Macho Man was my guy. Before I close, I got to do a quick impression. I got to do it. I got to do it. Here you guys ready? The kids are watching. They go, here goes Dan. Oh, yeah, brother. The cream always rises to the top. Yeah. So make sure you subscribe to Tantalizing Tony. Yeah. And make sure you give Mike Messier all the props you give him. Make sure you share his stuff because he's going to go all the way to the top. Drop the elbow like Mount Olympus. Oh, yeah. Mike and me. Maybe we'll be the new Mega Powers. Oh, yeah. Dig it.
That's awesome, man. That's great.
Thanks for having me. Tantalizing Tony on YouTube. Okay.
Tantalizing Tony. I got one last question, man, because I can't let you go because I forgot it until now. How did Tantalizing get to be the handle? How did
oh my God! he wins the prize. He wins. So, do you actually hear my sound effect?
I saw the tattoos. I heard the sound effect. Yeah, I see the tat. Yeah, but how did Tantalizing Tony become tantalizing is my question.
So, at Monday Night Raw, I bumped into my friends who I know to this from 1993, and they had a backyard wrestling federation called Holbrook Wrestling Alliance, which then became Hardcore Wrestling Alliance. They said, hey, man, I was cutting a promo. I was doing Macho Man. Yo, man, you're so funny. You're so good. You want to learn how to wrestle? I was like, sure. They said, what's your name going to be? And I was looking at this. We were in Penn Station, and this lady had some perfume, and it was called Tantalizing. And I love the smell. I said, Tantalizing Tony. They were like, yo, that's off the chain. And then when I looked it up, so let me tell you what it means. Hold my phone works quick. Now I know I'm on the spot. Tantalizing real quick. What's it mean? God, I'm so sorry. So definition of tantalizing is tormenting or teasing with the sight or promise of something unobtainable. Wow. So I always thought I was I was back in the 90s. I was a ladies' man. So I
Sure.
felt always unattainable. And I just always ran with the gimmick. I was a tantalizing one. I just got my tattoo for my birthday this year.
Oh, cool.
And I have always stuck to my gimmick. That's who I am, man. I'm tantalizing. I'm a tantalizing one.
That's awesome, bro. Well, Tantalizing Tony, we'll have to do this again. It's been a pleasure talking shop.
Pleasure talking to you, Mike.
Yeah, bro. And we'll have to meet up in Delaware or something and have some wrestling adventure, man. And best to you, bro. I really appreciate you being here.
I appreciate you for having me. You have no idea. I rushed home from the DMV. I wanted to be on the show so bad. I left work 15 minutes early, and I drove home just for you, man. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. And fans, once again, please go to YouTube, find Tantalizing Tony. That's his YouTube handle. And you find a lot of clips. I'm telling you, exclusive stuff that he's doing. I reached out to him because I really felt like a kindred spirit, a guy that's doing in New Jersey and Delaware what I'm doing here in Jacksonville with AEW, and just wrestling fans who have a passion for this business and a passion for YouTube as well. So Tantalizing Tony, peace, and I'll talk to you soon, my brother.
Stay tantalizing.